Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Jerry Cooey, and ho 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 to you.
Ho ho ho, Merry Christmas, and thank you for tuning in. I'm Deborah Nelson.
That's right, and on Santa Rosa Week TV, it's Merry Christmas, period, end of story. There's no holiday celebrations here. It is Merry Christmas.
You know, I had to set up Christmas decorations at work, and of course they bought Happy Holidays. And so I stuck it up on the door, and I knew what was going to... You know, people came in, and
right.
Of course it was commented on.
You were criticized.
Yes, it's going to be commented on.
Did you give them the letter from your management stating that it is only Happy Holidays at work?
I told the people that I said you can't. If you're in the Southeast and you say that, it's going to be Raleigh country. It's going to be commented on.
Yeah. Unbelievable, unbelievable. Well, as I said before, you know, this is the holiday season, and it is a special time of year for me. I thoroughly enjoy it.
Yes, as do we
the
all.
Hustle and the bustle, and wondering if the UPS man will bring that final delivery prior to the date.
Well, see, but that's the commercialization side.
Yes, I know that you hate so much.
Well, you know, because we discussed it, my particular beef with Christmas time is this ridiculous game that people play. They call it Dirty Santa usually in the office.
Before she gets wound up on this, I will have a rebuttal to this. Go ahead.
It's just the most disgusting thing in the holiday season, Christmas time. You get this gift exchange. You know, the concept of gift exchange is you want to say hi, I like you to somebody or whatever, and then people the point of the game is if you don't like your gift, you can snatch somebody else's,
right,
and so on down the line, and so you get this you always have this underlying subterranean hostility. They always make themselves heard, these little silent hostilities during this game, and you get people get nastier and nastier as the game progresses. You always have one person that brought something expensive, one or two expensive somethings, and then you always have cheap junk, and so people just get nastier and nastier. It's like the complete opposite of what the Christmas season is supposed to be with this stupid game. It's usually I think it's called Dirty Santa. That's what I always hear it called.
Well, my rebuttal to that is that people should love each other and enjoy the gift exchange, and if their heart is in the right place, it shouldn't matter what they receive. It should only matter that they participate.
But then what's the point of snatching it from somebody else if you don't like what you got?
Well, that's the fun of it.
That's not fun.
Maybe sometimes
really
a little hostility at Christmas might be fun.
It's not fun. I always decline to play. And then I'm always, I'm a wet blanket.
What do you do?
I think it's gross.
You sit in the corner and open your own present?
With my hands forward and with a righteous look on my face.
Well, folks, I'm very happy about something that has occurred in Pensacola this week. They've
really made a name for themselves nationally.
Yeah. The Pensacola City Council, I'm sure that the video is now into multiple hundreds of thousands of views. The circumstance we're talking about, and before we talk about that, we're going to back the bus up a little bit. And I want to remind you, because we at Santa Rosa Week TV, we firmly believe in the First Amendment constitutional right to peaceably assemble for a redress of grievances with our government. Deborah and I, along with Sharon Barnett, when the Community Maritime Park issue came up, where we had a federal judge who was refusing to allow public comment.
Sharon Barnett is an attorney out of Pensacola who has taken pro bono several public interest cases.
Right. So we all went to a Pensacola City Council meeting, and we stood up for the rights of all, and I felt like we did pretty good. We had a little bit of an impact with the Pensacola City Council, wherein they sent a letter to the CMPA stating that you will have public comment, but what we all learned was public comment meant they just stuck you in the corner, and you had a few minutes to say whatever you wanted to say, and they really didn't care to listen to you. As a matter of fact, this federal judge, Lacey Collier. Folks, think about this for a minute now. A federal judge, Lacey Collier, was quoted in the news media that he really didn't care to hear from the public on a $100 million project because he was responsible for making the decision. This is a federal judge that, should you get in trouble, you might wind up going before him. And so that set the stage for Ms. Barnett, along with two very brave citizens, Mr. Kessler and Mr. Boyd, and they entered suit to stop that and to allow the citizens' right to speak. We had a judge in Escambia County, Florida, Judge Bell, who said the Sunshine Law doesn't specifically use the word speak.
Yeah.
So you can't speak. It says you can participate.
And I just interject because I was at one of those hearings, and Sharon Barnett, the attorney for the plaintiffs, actually had a long list of case law in Florida where it had been interpreted that it did include the right to speak.
Absolutely. And then it was appealed to the first DCA. And the first DCA, there was no doubt in anybody's mind. Their guns were loaded when the case was made before them. They said the same thing. It doesn't specifically say speak, so you can't speak. You're allowed to attend, and you are allowed to participate.
Yeah.
And you know,
so how
look,
do you define participate?
Yeah, it's ridiculous. You know, how do you participate other than speak? I mean, I guess you could do cartwheels in front of the podium or jumping jacks or that kind of stuff. A very similar case went before the 5th DCA, and the 5th DCA didn't even write an opinion except they basically said we agree with the 1st DCA. So several of us have already been in this fight a long time, about a year and a half on this issue. But something very good happened. Now, some folks think it was very bad. I think it was very good.
Let's also remind the public that our wonderful Florida legislature attempted or acted like they were going to pass a law that said you could speak.
Right.
And of course,
and it never got out of committee.
Completely fell flat.
Right.
Yeah. Another Gates failure, if I'm not mistaken.
Exactly. So the stage is set. The Pensacola City Council is they're having a discussion on a panhandling ordinance. And I have to agree with a lot of folks. I think they got out of hand with the ordinance, and here's why I disagree with the ordinance. The ordinance says that you can't be out in the road or in the middle of the median. You can only be on the sidewalk. Well, I'd like to point out to you that I have spent days upon days in the median exercising my First Amendment rights, i.e. running for office, i.e. with a sign in the back of my truck that said no new taxes. And by the way, my no new taxes sign assisted in defeating 2 ridiculous sales tax in Santa Rosa County. So it became somewhat heated, and Sam Hall is now the president of the Pensacola City Council under their new charter. And at the Monday meeting, apparently Mr. Hall decided to be the judge and jury on what free speech is. So 3 people were removed from the Pensacola chambers.
Because they had compared what they were doing to the Nazis.
Right. And look, words mean things, folks. The people that were removed didn't walk up there and say, I think all of you are a bunch of Nazis. What they said, I feel very succinctly and very correctly, they went up there and said, the policy that you are considering implementing reminds me of things that went on in Nazi Germany. They did not, there was no name calling, but anyhow, Councilman Sam Hall, who's now the president, he had the police forcibly remove 3 people. So in comes Father Nathan Monk, and for those of you who don't know Father Monk, I've met him and been around him. He's very active in the youth community in Escambia County. Works with homelessness issues and trying to help folks that need a hand out rather than or hand up rather than a hand out. And he heard about this, so he went to the next scheduled city council meeting. And I will have to say, I will tip my Santa hat to Father Nathan Monk, because he was a lot nicer than I would have been.
Yes, he was.
But at Pensacola City Council meetings, they have a forum before the meeting begins. It's called the Boyd Forum, and it is called that because of Leroy Boyd, and that was the person that I mentioned before in the Maritime Park case. Leroy Boyd was a long-time civil rights activist in Escambia and in the surrounding areas, and he stood up for what was right. So after his passing, in his honor, they set aside 30 minutes prior to every city council meeting so a citizen could go up and say whatever they want. There is a timer on the desk, and you are allotted 4 minutes, I think is the, there 3 minutes. There is a time limit. You have 3 minutes. So Father Monk went forward, and we're going to show you the entire video, but Father Monk went forward and he said, I don't appreciate what happened Monday. I want us to see us do better than that. It is unfortunate. It's a bad example. We have the right as citizens for redress of grievances with our government. And what occurred here on Monday should never happen again, and it shouldn't have happened anyhow. As Father Monk is talking, Sam Hall says, your time is up. And Father Monk very politely, very respectfully looked at the time clock, and he said, no, I have a minute and some odd seconds left. So Sam Hall has lied, folks. He said, your time is up.
Well, then he said, I'm ruling you out of order.
Then since that didn't work, he said, I'm ruling you out of order. And some of the greatest words that I've ever heard come out of a person's mouth, Father Monk folded his hands and looked at him and said, no, sir, I'm not out of order. You're out of order. And at this time, you're gonna see one deputy, I believe it's a Pensacola police, come up on one side and is encouraging Father Monk to sit down, and he looks at him and says, no, I'm not.
Yeah. And
then another officer comes up there, and Father Monk stayed for his full time limit, and then he left the podium. Very interestingly in that, while that exchange is going on, and Mr. Geralds, Councilman Geralds, he didn't say anything, but Councilman Geralds got up out of his seat while this was going on.
Councilman John Geralds. Yeah.
John Geralds, and walked. He was in the process of walking out while this was occurring. And then you hear our friend Sherry Myers.
Yes. Who's also an attorney.
She's an attorney and a newly elected city council person. She looked at Sam Hall and said, sir, you are out of order. I am going out of the room, and should there be any citizens that want to redress their grievances with me, I'll see you outside. Yeah. And stormed out of the room. Yeah. And since then, it made the national news.
Yes.
Father Monk was invited on Fox Business News. I understand CNN had a conversation with him. Got wide distribution. I'm very proud, and I sent my email to Ms. Grable of the Pensacola News Journal. They wrote a blistering editorial that Sam Hall was out of line, and I thanked her profusely for writing that. And one of the things that I want to say, and I actually posted my comments on Facebook to that, but I'm going to look in the camera and I'm going to say it, and should any of our viewers happen to know any of the council members or family members or whatever, here's the message that I have for the entire city council. You watched, what went on. Now, I know where two of you are on this issue. John Gerald's and Ms. Myers. I know where two of you are at. Now, I'm going to look at the rest of you, and I am going to tell you that if it doesn't get resolved pretty quickly, I'm on my way to a city council meeting. Because here's my view of it. When you sit there and allow this kind of behavior, you're just as guilty as the person who is pushing this kind of behavior. So here is your choice, and I want you to know I'm going to come ask you personally. So you might as well be prepared for it. But I'm going to ask each one of you, do you support Sam Hall in his position? And the answer is yes or no. There's no gray here. It's yes or no. Because we the people need a list of who needs to be eliminated from the Pensacola City Council. Because if you stand firm with Sam Hall, and one of the things that I put on my Facebook comments is they try, but they haven't taken our right to vote from us yet. We still have the opportunity to vote. We still have the opportunity to get out and educate our friends, our neighbors, and our fellow citizens on what occurred.
Well, and here's the thing, is these public meetings, government meetings, are considering the poor quality of a lot of the newspaper coverage of some of these major issues. These are the only places where information can be stated on the record and then
challenge an elected official.
Right, elected officials challenged to respond on the record. The only venue. There is no other venue. Right,
and look, I've there's been a couple folks that well, I'm embarrassed this has occurred, and Pensacola once again gets another black eye. No, folks, this is exactly what we've been needing. Okay, I have, and Deborah has also. We have worked tirelessly to effect change to the Sunshine Law where it says speak. But the one thing that I have said, that I have argued ever since I got in this fight, is that the First Amendment to the Constitution and Florida's First Amendment to the Constitution, which mirrors the U.S. Constitution, as a citizen, we have the right to peaceably assemble for a redress of grievances with our government. Okay? Clearly defined. We've been operating under that for well over 200 years. Now, I will say.
And a redress, the word redress implies interaction.
Interaction. I will say that there is some free speech in the United States of America that I'd rather not hear. But let me tell you something. Just like with the Baptist church that does all their ugliness. It's ugly. But freedom of speech is freedom of speech, period, end of story. A council or an elected board certainly can set some time limits. They can ask for one speaker and to represent a large group. I'm okay with that. But the bottom line is, no one should be hauled out of a meeting when they are being polite, when they're trying to make a point. And what occurred at the Pensacola City Council, I'm glad it happened. It got nationwide attention. It got attorneys involved. It got attorneys thinking about it. In fact, speaking of attorneys, let me throw out a little something to you attorneys, practicing attorneys that sometimes shy away from helping a citizen on Sunshine Law cases. There's two attorneys in the state of Florida. One of them made $890,000 fighting for the citizen's right to speak, and another lawyer got $1.2 million. So if it's not pro bono, folks. If you're an attorney and it's a good case, jump on it. There's a payday in it for you. And
well, and let's also mention it's time for the Florida legislature to include the word speak in that law.
Well, sure.
Or else we pass an amendment.
Right. Well, look, here's my 2 cents in the whole thing is, and folks, let me point it out to you again. The Florida legislature does not have to follow the Sunshine Law. They're not required to have open meetings. They're not required to allow you to speak. and their records, they exempt a lot of stuff that makes it very difficult for a citizen to get to the bottom of what really occurred. And look, I'll say it again. If the legislature doesn't want to work with the citizens and give us protection within our counties, on our local governments, then in 2014 you can look for a constitutional amendment that says everybody's going to follow the Sunshine Law, including the judicial, because folks, the judicial hides behind a lot of exemptions also.
And let's also mention that any member of the legislature can introduce that constitutional amendment onto the ballot without getting all the 600,000 signatures that you and I would have to get.
Exactly.
So they could do it tomorrow and it'd be on the ballot in 2012.
You know, folks, I think I've proven to you I'm a very patient man, and we will eventually get to where we need to go on this issue. But you know, once again, I am glad that it happened. It brought attention where it needed to be brought. I would just soon forget about the Sunshine Law and just say, hey, it's a constitutional right, and if you don't like it, don't run for office.
Correct. Exactly.
It has just turned into an absolute mess. But it got a lot of attention, and it awakened a lot of people. My kids, you can't imagine the Facebook chatter that came off of this.
Yeah, I actually heard about it from my daughter.
I mean, it is all over the place, and I am glad to see that happen. And in closing, folks, I want to wish you a very Merry Christmas to you and yours. And for everyone who's been nice, as the definition of Santa Claus is, I hope you get something. For some of our elected and appointed folks who have been naughty, that thump that you hear might not be Santa Claus, might be a federal agency coming to visit you. I'm Jerry Cooey.
I'm Deborah Nelson. Thanks for watching. Merry Christmas. Good night.
Members of the council, I too do not want to see a repeat of what happened at the Monday meeting. I thought it was embarrassing what happened at the Monday meeting in a lot of ways. I've been coming and speaking at City Council for 5 years. And in those 5 years, I have never seen someone removed from a City Council meeting. And at least 3 people were removed at that meeting. And what was offensive about their speech was that they weren't connecting the dots that you wanted them to. Well, you don't have the right to determine what type of speech people are going to have when they are addressing their government for a redress of grievances. If someone wants to connect the dots between the poverty that we have and the amount that a loan is being taken out for, they have the right to connect those dots and question their government about that. As Americans, we have the right to redress our government without fear of being arrested. Oftentimes, when people come to address their government, they're passionate about the things that they have to say. It embarrassed me on Monday. I have had the opportunity to stand before many administrations of this council, and I have always enjoyed it. I've even enjoyed the banter and the times that we've gotten into arguments, and I've had the opportunity to come forward to someone and say, sorry that I said that thing, that probably wasn't the smartest thing that I said, or I could have said that a little bit differently, and foot and mouth and all that kind of stuff. But to throw someone out, that's a shame. That's embarrassing. This council does not have the right to limit people's speech, to determine what type of speech is appropriate, or to determine what types of dots should and should not be connected. This council should be more embarrassed by the fact that people were able to connect dots to Hitler than that someone pointed it out. Whether or not they're connecting dots from Hitler to George Wallace to Barney, if they're connecting those dots, You should be asking, well, what are we doing that's allowing people to connect those dots? It was a sick and gross abuse of power. And what is he?
Your time is up. Sit down. Thank you.
No, I have a minute and 12 seconds left.
I'm ruling you out of order.
Well, I am absolutely within order. I am with order. You are out of order. You made an oath to protect the Constitution. I'm not leaving the podium. I have 56 seconds left. I'm not leaving this podium. I have a constitutional right to be here. I have 49 seconds left. I'm sorry, I'm not the one that's doing this. I'm not doing it. I'm an American citizen. I'm an American citizen. I'm sorry,
leaving.
Chip. I'm sorry.
I am leaving this chamber as you are in violation of the people's First Amendment right. I will be outside if you want to address your grievances to your government.